Metro Talk. I'm Kent Scheffel. Thanks for being with us. Jim Schrader, the publisher of the Telegraph, is alongside. Welcome, Jim.
Hi, Kent.
And Pat Gowan, one of the editors with the Post-Dispatch, is here as well. Welcome, Pat.
Hi, Kent.
Pat, Madison County Auditor Rick Fassin says his election opponent, Jeremy Plank, who works in the county treasurer's office, is to blame for the county losing up to $1 million in bond sales. Is this correct? Is this election rhetoric? What do we have here?
Well, it's certainly election rhetoric. What more it might be, I'm not entirely sure. When the Republican Kurt Prenzler got elected treasurer, he fired two investment officers who were previously employed by the Democrat who held the office, Fred Bathon, and Frank Miles appointed when Bathon stepped down. Prenzler, the Republican, fires them and says they'd made an improper investment, and he cancels the investment. Some people felt that he did that to justify the firing. Some people felt that the investment was improperly made. The Democrats said it really was not improperly made. The Democrats say that the canceling of that investment has cost the county at least $1 million in lost interest as a result of the cancellation of that. Now, Mr. Plank, who is a Democrat working for,
Republican running against Fassin.
Running against Fassin. I'm sorry, I'm getting this backward. Fassin, the auditor, a Democrat, says that Plank, working for Prenzler, the Republican treasurer, was responsible for canceling that instrument, that he's the one who cost them $1 million, that his opponent cost the $1 million. Plank's response has been, well, if Fassin had not been asleep at the switch as auditor, he would have realized that they had a no-bid contract for something like, what was it, $50 million, whatever it was, from an Arkansas broker that was at no bidding process, and that it was Fassin's fault that all this happened to begin with. You can see how complicated it is. I can't hold it straight in my mind. In the end, I think you've got Republicans and Democrats who will use elements of this to shore up their own beliefs that will appeal them. I don't think this is an issue that's likely to change anybody's minds.
Jim, do we have a serious issue here, or do we have election rhetoric when Auditor Rick Fassin says that Jeremy Plank is the person who's responsible for costing the county so much money in the bond sale?
When Kurt Prenzler was elected as treasurer and basically is the one Republican voice of the executive management of Madison County, he painted a red target on his forehead and said, okay, take me down, at some point in time, because the Democrats don't like the fact that they lost the treasurer's office. Kurt Prenzler's not running for election this time for anything, but Jeremy Plank, his chief deputy, is. And he has the audacity to run against longtime auditor Rick Fassin. That shifts the bullseye off of Kurt Prenzler's forehead and onto Jeremy Plank's forehead, which, if he did sign documents for the sale of these bonds, the early sale of these bonds, it would be at the direction of his boss, Republican Kurt Prenzler. So as a worst case scenario, so Jeremy signs the documents, which Rick Fassin, current auditor, says, shame on him, he signed 13 out of these 16 documents. Jeremy would be doing what Kurt told him to do. It would be like my boss telling me to sign a contract for, a new service for our company, and I say, okay, boss, I'll sign my name, right? This is really the first time in recent memory that Rick Fassin has had some true competition running for re-election. So he's going to make hay with anything that he possibly can. It's interesting how the longer this goes on, the amount of money that the county would have lost, according to the opponents of Kurt Prenzler and Jeremy Plank, continues to grow. That would be like me saying all of the money that I have lost because I didn't invest in Harley Davidson in 1984 when it was about $4 a share. Look at all the money I could have made. Whether or not these bonds were illegal has kind of been softened into against policy and they were against the Madison County's own stated policy at that time. They were not illegal per se. The fact that the bonds continued to go up in value is what allows this $1 million figure to come into play. Had the bonds gone down in value, we would be talking about how smart Kurt Prinzler and Jeremy Plank was that they got out from under this obligation before the bottom dropped out of the bond market. It just happens to be playing into the hands of their competitors at this point in time. It's absolutely campaign rhetoric. It's absolutely Auditor Fassin trying to seize on anything he can to paint his competitor in the upcoming November 6th election as a bad guy.
And it's a great example of how when something's cast in black and white, it sounds so damning until you actually get into the details and find that it's all much fuzzier than someone would want you to believe.
And had I invested in Harley Davidson, we would not be doing this program today because I would be living on my island down in the Caribbean.
Pat and I might be doing this program.
Didn't you invest in a Harley Davidson in your garage?
No, I wasn't even smart enough to do that. I got a Honda.
We need to take a break. We've got more coming up.
Hi, I'm Audrey Lucchese, and I'm from Alton, Illinois. I love music, and that's why I came to Lewis & Clark. It's been an amazing experience here at Lewis & Clark, working with students that are so talented, coming from all over the area, and they work so hard to follow their dreams. The music faculty at Lewis & Clark they're fantastic, and they're there every step of the way to push you to follow your dreams. One of the unique opportunities that I have had at Lewis & Clark is being able to record my own music with a fellow student here. Being able to record our music has opened doors for us in the music industry. My long-term goal is to finish here at Lewis & Clark and then to transfer to a four-year school and finish my degree in music performance. I would recommend Lewis & Clark to another student because it is definitely a great place to get started and it can open so many doors for you.
Big dreams and good grades aren't enough to get into college. There are actual steps you need to take. Finding someone who can help is the first and most important. For the next steps, go to knowhowtogo.org.
This is Metro Talk. I'm Kent Scheffel. Pat Gowan and Jim Schrader are here. Jim, Governor Quinn's office managed to block 25% of the Freedom of Information Act requests that were filed between April and July. His office cited the preliminary drafts exemption in blocking those FOIA requests. Does it seem right that 25% of those requests could be blocked?
Well, according to Governor Quinn, it was only 25% he was able to block, and if he'd had his druthers, it would have been 100% until he was ready to call in the cameras and the news media to release any information that he would like to release. A loophole in FOIA is as much as the state of Illinois has and media professionals in the state of Illinois and some in the legislature has tried to tighten up the information that are free up the information that needs to be allowed to news media. There are some segments of the government that continue to look for any loophole that they can to keep things behind closed doors until they're ready to talk about them. The preliminary drafts kind of loophole in there that really does allow a lot of secrecy until such time that the elected officials are ready to eke it out to us lowly media professionals that are trying to keep our readers and viewers informed. It doesn't surprise me that 25% was held back, was kept quiet. I'm surprised it was only 25% because especially state government and some local governments, as Pat could share with you, some governments are a little more, government bodies are a little more open than others. But I'm surprised he could only hide 25% using that loophole.
Pat, the governor's office kept out 25% of the Freedom of Information Act requests between April and July. Does that some numbers seem right? Is that a problem?
A typical public official does not believe the public's business includes knowing what's going on in that particular individual's office. It's just been my experience for decades of this. In the case of this exemption, this preliminary draft exemption is what it's called. And essentially it is saying there is a point before which it's not really final enough for the public to have the appropriate context or the appropriate knowledge. I can understand why there may be conversations you and I would have if we both worked for the governor that maybe weren't formed enough to be released publicly. So I'll give them a pass on this for the moment and say, okay, maybe 25% of this, maybe that's not so unreasonable. Let's measure this in the context of what else the governor's doing about transparency. This is a governor who just signed a bill that moves back the waiting period for Freedom of Information requests from state government to 21 days from 5. So making it much harder, and they delay all the time, even at the 5 days. The 21 just makes it easier to delay. Also to impose a fee on people who ask for information too often. I'm not sure how the public feels about that. It's a governor who doesn't want...
Takes out the watchdog groups, though.
Takes out more than the media, actually, and it also takes out, and there's some crazy people who file all the time who probably are a burden, but it seems like this is not maybe the best way to deal with that. He doesn't want reporters to see what's going on in the prisons. Remember that? We've talked about that within recent weeks. What does the 25% of FOI refusals out of the governor's office in that time period, what does that say in the context of his broader view of transparency? And I would say that for a guy who sees himself as a populist governor, that the track record recently has not been very good.
Jim, the state's attorney for McLean County, which includes the Bloomington-Normal area, says that the state's ban on concealed weapons is incorrect, is wrong, is unconstitutional, so he's not going to enforce it. Is this the correct way to deal with that issue?
Well, I don't know if it's the correct way, but it's certainly gotten a lot of people's attention. Of course, it's not the correct way when you come right down to it. State's attorney is bound to uphold the laws as they are written. He may not agree with the laws necessarily, but he is bound to uphold them. This state's attorney is leaving right after the election. This is his last term.
He's appointed.
Yeah, he was appointed, but I mean, he's not running for re-election. He's not worried about preserving his office. The attitude is, what are you going to do, fire me? Right? You only appointed me. He was making a political statement that many happen to agree with when you come down to some of the gun laws in the state of Illinois, specifically the concealed carry law. By the same token, I have to believe that if the state's attorney, all of a sudden people were running around McLean County with bullet scabbards on and holsters hanging off of each hip and AR-15 slung across their back, he might have a tendency to revisit some of his thinking on this. It's a political stunt. He knows he's heading out in a couple of weeks. It allowed him to make a statement about the state of Illinois and the fact that the state of Illinois continues to be the only state in the United States that does not allow some form of carrying a weapon for self-defense.
Pat, the state's attorney for McLean County, says he thinks the concealed carry law is unconstitutional, says he's not going to enforce it. Is that a valid way to deal with the issue?
Well, Jim made the point that a man takes an oath to uphold the law. That's a piece of this. Another piece is, I wouldn't be quick to carry a gun in McLean County under these circumstances because the police say they'll still make arrests. And the statute of limitations won't run out until long after this guy's out of office. So as a police officer, I could arrest you and wait to file for charges until he's gone. So there's no guarantee that you've really got any protection at all. He suggests that there ought to be a way to deal with unfair circumstances. He cites, as an example, a woman whose husband dies. He has guns in the house. She doesn't have a firearm owner's card, therefore her possession of those guns is illegal, and he's not going to prosecute her. Well, prosecutors have a lot of discretion. No prosecutor in his right mind is going to prosecute that woman anyway. I just cannot believe that would happen. That's when there's discretion. The difference here isn't that he can exercise discretion. The difference is he's announcing as a blanket thing. And part of the problem with that is anytime you decide, rather than to follow the oath, which laws you're going to follow, you can discriminate like mad. Okay, so the white guy driving through McLean County with a concealed gun gets a pass, but the black guy gets arrested? I mean, I'm not saying he would do that, but I'm saying that when you decide to selectively enforce the law, those are the kind of consequences you might expect. So I understand the political statement and all of that, and he's a short timer, but I think it sets a very bad example for the way people who take an oath to uphold the law, whether they follow it.
We need to take another quick break. We'll have more in a moment.
Hello and welcome to the Lewis and Clark Minute. Today we're going to check out the radio broadcasting program in WLCA with Mike Lemons.
Have you ever listened to your favorite radio station or your favorite disc jockey and say, you know, I could do that? Or maybe you're the type of person who says, I could never do something like that. Well, with the help of first-year Mass Comm student John, we're going to show you just how easy it is. Each voice intro starts with talking about the band that just played, and we add a station identifier. Next, you want to offer some information that may be of interest to your audience. And finally, tell the listeners what the next song is, who sings it, followed by another station identifier. John will do one live now.
Silver Sun Pickup Substitution on WLCA. The Big Pink released their debut album called A Brief History of Love. The single is off that album. It's The Big Pink with Dominoes. It's on College Radio's Best 89.9.
This has been your Lewis and Clark Minute.
What's that? I don't know. Something I kind of made. Ooh, what's it do?
What do I do? Well, thanks for asking. I ring my bell and I like to dance. What do I do? Well, thanks for asking.
Ow! Yeah, it still needs a little work.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions or just play some games at inventnow.org.
Sounds like you could use some Van Gogurt. It's fortified with arts-rich nutrients to improve your math and reading skills. Catch!
Van Gogurt, thanks. So what's the deal with your ear?
Always with the ear, huh?
Feed your kids the arts. For 10 simple ways to learn how, visit AmericansForTheArts.org.
You're watching Metro Talk. I'm Kent Scheffel. Pat Gowan's here along with Jim Schrader. Pat, report shows that Illinois has almost 7,000 units of local government. That's the most of any state in the nation. Pennsylvania comes in second, but Pennsylvania only has about 5,000 compared to Illinois' 7,000 units. Do we have too many governing bodies in Illinois?
I thought you meant Metro East had 7,000. Seems more reasonable if you spread that across the state. Illinois has got, we've got townships, we have fire protection districts, we have street light districts, we have mosquito abatement districts that have separate abilities to tax, and that's really where the issue comes in. Do you really have economy of scale if you've got multiple layers of government doing slightly different things from each other, whose functions might more easily be consolidated and more economically be consolidated, and you don't have as many executives to pay and all those kinds of things? If we don't look at that in the context of the economic troubles that the state of Illinois is having, there's something wrong with us. Yet these are all sacred cows. Everyone has its constituents, and nobody wants to touch the this or the that. But holistically, I suppose it would take a constitutional convention or something to come along and try to straighten all that out. Right or wrong, I don't know. I presume there have been studies, I've never read one, to suggest how wasteful this must be, but it certainly suggests that it would be. California, which is 3 times the size of the state of Illinois, is it 23 or 24 counties? Illinois has 102. I mean, you can look at different ways places have of doing these things. I don't think they have townships at all. Somebody to step back and holistically look at this might be a good time to be doing that.
Jim, do we have too many units of local government when the state of Illinois leads the nation with 7,000 local units and Pennsylvania's second with fewer than 5,000?
We have the best government taxpayers will buy in the state of Illinois. Library districts are in there, levy districts are in there. Some of these that I think if everybody looked at a list would sit back and say, well, no, that makes sense. We would need one of those, but we might not need this one over here. The discussion has gone on for years about the township form of government. Is township government still fully duplicating services provided by counties or by cities, or could they be rolled into existing offices in counties or cities with recognition of Don Huber, who occasionally joins us on this program. That discussion has gone on for a long time. That would take a change in the way governments are structured to eliminate the township supervisor's office and to roll those duties into a county or into a city function. When you get out into the rural areas, a lot of times those township services are the provider. When you get out in the rural areas where you're talking about road maintenance or snow removal, if not for the township, you would be a long time waiting for county services to take over where they belong. Does it surprise me that Illinois is number one with 7,000 forms of government? No, it doesn't surprise me at all. Should some of these be consolidated? Absolutely, but as Pat pointed out, it's probably going to take a constitutional convention to come in and change these, because it's not just going to be a matter of somebody looking at the list and saying, we don't need this, move it over here.
Look what happened when Governor Quinn proposed consolidating school districts, the more than 800 school districts in Illinois, into something like a third of that many, and that just fell flat like a pancake as fast as he proposed it. People didn't want that. They didn't want large school districts. They didn't want to lose control of their local dollars and the administration of those local dollars. So you've got competing interests with this. There are a lot of people who say, when I get my tax dollars to the Township General Assistance Fund, I know it's going to be dispersed locally. There's a lot of that goes on. So it would be a real struggle to get this changed.
Pat, the Illinois Student Assistance Commission has reopened the state's College Illinois prepaid tuition program. That was a program that ran into a big variety of financial problems. Should it have been reopened?
Well, I suppose it should not have been reopened under the previous management or previous mismanagement, but it's had pretty much a top-to-bottom house cleaning, as I understand it, and they're now opening themselves up again for people to prepay for their children's college education. Whether that's a good idea is a separate issue, and one I'm not terribly well versed in, but you get your money back, I guess, if your child decides not to go to an Illinois State institution, but you probably could have done better, so I'm led to believe, if you'd invested the money somewhere else rather than this fund. If that's the case, I guess this might be a somewhat better deal if your child decides to go to a university in Illinois, but how do you know when you start this, when the kid's like in kindergarten, what's going to happen all those years hence? So whether it's a good idea is separate from whether it's being honestly run. They're going to open it back up. It will be looked at carefully, I'm sure, by the state and by regulators and by people who choose to invest in it. Anybody who saves early for college for their kids, I laud that. I wish I'd done more of that myself. I'm paying the cost of that on the other end now. But so it's not a bad idea to do, and if they can run this clean and efficiently and fairly, and if the investments are properly made, I guess it can be a good thing.
Jim, should the state's College Illinois program be reopened? The state has reopened it after the program went through a number of financial issues.
I continue to be a little concerned that it's the Illinois Student Assistance Program, because the state of Illinois is not behind these funds. You are not investing your money in anything that is secured by the full faith of the state of Illinois, not that That's worth a whole lot. But that was the problem with this fund a few years ago. Well, that's true. But that was the problem with this fund a few years ago when they basically were insolvent, because many people thought when they put their monies in these funds that they could never lose money, that it would not go down in value, that their money would always be there and grow. And when we entered the recession and some of those investments didn't pay off very well, and somebody started putting money in 18 years ago thinking that they would pay for a full ride at U of I today, it didn't grow that quickly, and the obligations were not met, or the understanding was not met. I wish that it didn't have the state of Illinois' name assigned to it, that you take that implication away and you call it what it is. It's a savings plan, like you could have for Gerber babies, or any other of these funds where you start putting money away when your child is an infant, and hopefully they are ready to pay for their tuition when they are of college age. This is an investment program. It is not backed by the state of Illinois. There is potential for loss, as they say in the legalities of it, and I hope that people are more understanding of that now.
Would they be better off to just put their money into some sort of savings plan that offers the same tax benefits?
Well, I, like Pat, wasn't smart enough to do that 20 some odd years ago. I have heard that, and there are certainly financial advisors out there today that will swear that they could do better than the Illinois College Fund. Are there better ways to make money, different investments that would pay more? Certainly, but there are risks involved in those as well. Make sure to read your prospectus very carefully before making investments. So it could be, there could be better ways to save for college. Certainly there could be worse ways. But the state of Illinois is not behind this investment.
Pat, the way to go, or should people just look at a private investment? Would that be easier?
Well, I think they should get some advice and compare rates before they jump into this. The idea that it is a state program, and the idea that it might be more secure, and the idea that it might be the best investment, I think none of those are necessarily true.
That's going to do it for this round of Metro Talk. Thanks for being with us. I'm Kent Scheffel. Pat Gowan, one of the editors with the Post-Dispatch, has been here, along with Jim Schrader, the publisher of the Telegraph. We'll see you next time.